There are moments when officers have to face off against the most stubborn, most brutal, and most death-defying criminals on the block. From epic hand-to-hand combats to deadly shootouts that leave blood on the streets. These scenes would seem like something out of a James Bond movie. But hey, they're real, and they're recorded live. In this video, we've assembled the best of these action-packed encounters. But be warned, these scenes are not for the faint of heart. Stick around as we bring you the most heartbreaking moments of the police facing the most dangerous criminal. On May 7, 2025, dispatch received a heartbreak call from a woman in distress in Orlando, Florida. The Orange County Sheriff's Office sent 2 deputies to the address. This was around 11 p.m. in the late evening. According to reports, the woman in question had been strangled and battered inside the apartment by an unknown suspect. However, when cops arrived at the building, it turned out to be a different story altogether. The officers knocked and identified themselves, but strangely, there was no response. The victim, who had identified herself as 19-year-old Vanessa Eugene, was nowhere to be found. At first, everything was quiet, until the officers began to hear someone screaming from inside.
Let me see your hands! Let me see your hands! Sheriff's Office, let me see your hands!
Strangely, it was as though someone was inside, but was denying the cops entry. Due to the nature of the call, there was no way the cops would leave without verifying the status of Miss Eugene. In fact, at this point, officers weren't sure who or what was behind the door, and so they decided to storm in, guns loaded, hands pointing, hearts racing. Once inside, the officers were prepared for a showdown, but instead, they were met with another round of silence. The officers slowly scaled rooms inside the apartment, looking for whoever was inside. Then, they suddenly heard footsteps. As the men in uniform forced their way through the inner room of the house, nothing would prepare them for the horror they were about to witness. The crazy woman slid deeper into the house and into the bathroom, leading the officers further down the maze. Again, the officers were unsure if this was Miss Eugene or not. When they finally cornered her, that's when all hell broke loose. It was like something out of a horror movie. Turns out the psycho lady charged at the cops with a knife, and the first officer barely escaped, thanks to the other 2 officers firing their weapons. Sadly, the woman with the knife turned out to be Miss Vanessa Eugene, the same one who dialed 911. On February 6, 2025, an unexpected situation went down at a filling station in Lexington, Illinois. Officer in the area had been alerted to the case of a vehicle allegedly involved in an armed robbery. They tracked a vehicle to this gas station, and the drama began.
See your hands. Lay down, on the ground now. Stay right there.
The officers attempted to arrest the 2 occupants of the car, 19-year-old Joseph Martin Hernandez and 18-year-old Ryan Aaron Stanley Hurst. However, while Joseph Hernandez cooperated with the men in uniform, Hurst pulled out a gun and opened fire. A fierce gun battle ensued, with neither side refusing to back down. Eventually, Hurst got hit by a bullet, though he still refused to come out of the car. At this point, the officers understood that Hurst was the driver of the getaway car, but they couldn't fathom why the 18-year-old would rather bleed to death inside the car than get out for help. It took a lifetime before the cops finally managed to convince the young criminal to come out of the car. When he still put up a fight. The cops proceeded to provide first aid to Hurst before the medics finally showed up. Luckily, he made it to the hospital and recovered from his wounds. This next criminal, however, wasn't so lucky. On December 1st, 2024, a 911 caller from St. Charles, Illinois reports a 41-year-old man terrorizing the neighborhood with a chainsaw. 2 St. Charles Police Department officers are dispatched to the scene, with the first officer arriving much earlier than expected. A bystander pointed the officer to the building where the chainsaw man was last sighted. It was a cafeteria. The policeman carefully made his way up to the front door and knocked. As the officer made his way through the hallway, searching for the assailant, he radioed headquarters for backup. However, backup never arrived on time for what happened next. The officer found the man, who was later identified as Daniel H. Escalera, holding a chainsaw just as reported. However, rather than drop the weapon as instructed, he decided to do this. As 41-year-old Escalera turned on the chainsaw to attack, the officer responded with a taser, putting him down. Or so he thought. Needless to say, this officer was terrified by this encounter. I mean, it's not every day you meet a psycho armed with a chainsaw and can shrugs off a taser like it's a water gun. The first officer probably wouldn't have made it out alive if his backup had arrived any later. Here's the body cam footage of the second officer who arrived at the scene and fired the first shot.
Shots fired!
Unluckily for Escalera, one of the officer's bullets hit him in the chest. By the time he was transferred to Del Nor Hospital, nothing could be done to save his life. He died from the multiple gunshot wounds. Autopsy also revealed that he had been intoxicated with methamphetamine. What's your take on this? Did this man deserve the deadly force that was used by these officers? Also, which of these cases do you find most intriguing? Share your thoughts in the comments. Also, don't forget to smash the like button and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss our next video. Bye for now.